Good morning. That mic okay? Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. Now, before I start, is everybody in the room familiar with David Attenborough? Yeah? I'd like you to picture David Attenborough in your mind's eye for a moment. And imagine he's with his film crew on the side of the Serengeti plain, under a couple of bushes, filming a lion. And the lion's the other side of the clearing, chewing away on a bit of gazelle. And they're filming away. All of a sudden, a breeze appears from behind them and blows their scent over to the lion, who immediately head up. Where's this fresh meat that he can smell? And he's looking around, he's growling. And with that, one of the cameramen takes a pair of Nike running shoes out of his bag and slips them on. And David says, "You'll never outrun a lion in those. Feck the lion, David, as long as I outrun the rest of you, I'm going to be okay." And that's what we're trying to do here today, is give you guys something to outrun the rest of them. Okay? That's the point of it. Who wants to be able to outrun the rest of them? Oh my goodness. Okay. So the idea here today, you can see from the slide, is pick up a couple of things, learn them, implement them, and earn from them. Okay? Now, let's check which is, Now, nobody knows who first invented the wheel. But the oldest archaeological find of a wheel is over 5,300 years old. And it was like the first one here, just a wooden disc. And over the years, it has changed and changed and changed, right up to the last one we see there, the modern wheel that we see on cars today. And it is monumentally different to the one from roughly 100 years ago. The reason I've put that up there is, for as long as I have been in the world of work, people have said to me, don't reinvent the wheel. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we do need to continuously improve it. And it's the same with our skill sets. If people hadn't continuously improved the wheel, that's what our cars would look like in the car park. Anybody got one of those? So that's the point of what we're trying to do. Now, before we can think about improving, we have to think about where we are. If you went for a golf lesson after this today, the first thing the golf professional would do was put you up on a tee box and watch the swing that you have, so that we know where to start. Now, obviously, we're not going to bring everybody down here and test their sales pitches, but I just want to give you a bit of background to this. I have looked at all the statistics in sales from all over the world. And would you believe, for every 10 customers that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, that is the average amount of people that we do business with. 2.75 out of 10. Would anybody feel that that's off the scale? Or would that seem about right? Now let me ask you a question. Is there another career on the planet that would be an acceptable success rate? Would you use a surgeon who had a 2.75 success rate? Would you go on holidays using a pilot with a 2.75 success rate? And maybe more importantly, if Johnny Sexton stood up in the Aviva Stadium to kick for the posts and scored 2.75 out of every 10, would you accept it? Not a chance. Why do we accept it in what we do? Just think about that. Now, another statistic that's interesting is 1.25 out of every 10 never buy. And we've all had customers like that, haven't we? What do we call them? The tire kickers. We all know those. What's interesting is 1.25 out of every 10 will buy any old thing we put in front of them. And we've all seen those too, haven't we? So that actually means that we only use our sales skills to convert the difference between the 1.25 and the 2.75. That's 1.5 out of 10. It's not easy, is it? And I thought long and hard about why. Why is this? And most of us accept it because it's the norm. But why does it happen? Now, just to show you, in the autumn series internationals in the Aviva, that was Johnny Sexton's scoring rate, 8.33 out of 10. That's what we should all be striving for, ladies and gentlemen. That's the question we all need to ask ourselves. How do you feel when you think of salespeople? Did a shiver go up your back when you thought of salespeople? When somebody comes knocking on your office door and says there's a guy here trying to sell you a photocopier, what do you say? Get rid of him. Tell him I'm in the meeting. Tell him I'm in the toilet. Whatever it takes, get rid of him because we don't want to talk to them. And why is that? Anybody any ideas? Is it just because we've had bad experiences? Do we think that's it? Again, I looked into this. Would you believe, ladies and gentlemen, that the media, from when we were all very small, has been telling us that you can't trust salespeople? Every day, going into our subconscious. I'm going to show you. Who's that fella? Anybody recognize him? It's Max from EastEnders. He's on the telly 3 times a week. Do you all recognize him? Yeah. You've seen the programme. A very unscrupulous kind of character, isn't he? Would you buy anything off him? No. 3 times a week, telling millions and millions of people that salespeople can't be trusted. Now, how long has this been going on? Who recognises him? Arthur Daly. There was a good giggle there when he came up, which means most of you recognise him. It's 30 years since he was on the telly. And still, everybody remembers him. And the daddy of them all. Just before Christmas last year, Only Fools and Horses, with all its reruns, became the biggest watched television show in the history of the English-speaking world. Telling people that you can't trust salespeople. So that's where we have to start. And when we go out and about and we meet our customers and we say, "Good morning, my name's Peter, how can I help you today?" And I think I'm great. That's what they see in their mind's eye. And that's what we have to try and elevate ourselves above. Now, you'll see how this falls into place as we go. Do people buy on price or do people buy on value? Anybody have a comment on that? We're all just going to stay quiet. Keep our head below the parapet.
They buy on both.
They buy on both.
Not always together. Some say it's price, some say it's value. Sometimes it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's only price, sometimes it's only value.
Yeah. Now, the first thing I'll say is, if people bought only on price, the car park downstairs would be full of Dacia Sanderos and nothing else. Who drove here in a Dacia Sandero? No one. There's still a market for 150 grand Mercedes. And that, to me, proves that people don't buy on price. They buy on value. But value is a very interesting thing, because the word value, especially in the last 10 years, has come to mean something different to what I believe value is. We see it all the time in the newspapers, the supermarkets advertising. Great value, only $1.99. Great value, 2 packs, 3 for 2, whatever it happens to be. And value has become synonymous with cheap or bargain. But yet, the things that we have at home that we keep in the safe, that money couldn't replace, what are they called? Valuables. And that is the real meaning of the word value, and it's been forgotten. Now, if we could build value in what we do and build it properly, price will go out the window. That's my belief. But because we're not building value properly, what do we end up in? A row with our customer every day? Over price. So we're going to look at a couple of ideas as we go. How can we change that? So the first thing I want to do, because this was an interesting one Dave mentioned to me when we were talking about this morning, whether the people in the room would be mainly business to business or business to consumer. I said there's no difference. Still dealing human to human. So any examples or ideas I give you today will work for both. Here's the science bit. Who likes the science bit first thing in the morning? Now, obviously we know what that is. It's the human brain. Now that area there of the human brain is called the neocortex, or more commonly known as the thinking brain. It's what differentiates us from the animals. It's what has allowed us to invent tools, to have conversations, to do sums, all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing about the thinking brain is that it never stops thinking. You know, when you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about something you might be doing tomorrow, and you can't switch that part of the brain off. And what's interesting is we always try and sell our product or service to the thinking brain. And we do it based on this is what it is and this is what it does. And what happens most of the time? We get to the end of our presentation and we say, do you want it? And they say, I need to think about it. And sometimes they'll buy it. And then they'll ring you up on Monday and say, listen, I was thinking. I don't want it. How often has that happened to us? Does your head in? I'm going to leave that for a second. I'm going to talk about some other bits of the brain. This area here is called the stem. It's the instinctive brain. It's the brain that regulates our breathing and our digestion and all those things that our body does when we don't need to think about it. And it never makes a decision, or does it? Because it's instinct and it's the part of the brain that keeps us alive, sometimes it does take over when survival is important. If you're walking home on a dark road after a few pints on a Saturday night and you hear a speeding car coming at you, before you know what's happened, you have leapt into the ditch. You didn't even make a decision on it. That was that part of the brain keeping you alive. This part of the brain is the limbic brain. It's the emotional brain. Now what's interesting about that is when you save yourself from the speeding car and you sit up, that part of the brain kicks in and floods you with emotions that tell you that was the right decision to make. And when we go home and we tell our family about what happened, nothing will ever shake our belief in that decision being the right decision. Now, the reason I showed you that is those two parts of the brain, because they were the first parts of the brain to evolve, actually interact with each other much better than with the thinking brain. And the question I have for you is, what if we could learn to sell to those parts of the brain. What difference might that make? Now, I wanted to give an example, and an example that everybody could understand. So I picked this. It's a door lock. And the reason I picked that is every single one of you came out through a door this morning. And I can't be accused of bias for any particular industry, as everybody knows what that is. Now, that is a modern door lock on a composite or PVC door. Now, anybody familiar with that type of lock? Yeah? What are they? They're what I call a pain in the arse. Because when you come home and you have to yank up the door handle and you have to put the key in to lock it, and then you've two choices. You can either leave the key in it, and then 20 minutes later when someone else comes home, they can't get in. And you could be having a shower, or whatever, cooking the dinner, and they're banging on the door, and you've got to go and let them in. Your other choice is take the key out, go and hang it up somewhere, and then you're sitting down watching the telly, and what happens? Somebody rings the doorbell, and you have to run out, and then there's no key in the door. And you shout out through the letterbox, I'll be with you in a second, I just have to go and find the keys. So we're all familiar with that, aren't we? It's not satisfactory in either way. Now, I came across this interesting little gizmo recently for a hall door. And it is basically, you know that click switch that you often get on meeting room doors, toilets, that kind of thing. And it's one of those for a hall door. And I actually asked somebody to sell me one. You know the old Wolf of Wall Street, sell me the pail, sell me the pen. I said, sell me the lock. And what happened was, the salesperson sold it to me, to my thinking brain. And he said, you know the way you come home, you have to hang the key up and all the rest of it. He said, I'm of the age where I've 20 minutes from getting home and I remember I've left my phone or my charger or my glasses in the car, whatever it happens to be. And it saves me having to go and get the key. I can just click the switch, run out, come back in, click the switch, job done. Now, because he did that, he did two things. He sold it just to my thinking brain, and he made the big mistake that many of us make. He told us what he liked about it. And we all do that. What's very interesting is, let's think about our customers for a moment. What do our customers care about? Our customers care about themselves. They don't care what we think. They don't care what we like about it. But yet we tell them, don't we? It's my favorite bit of this product. It's my favorite bit. So I thought about how could we sell that differently? Now, I want you to picture something for a second. Who can remember the last time that they left the bathroom or the bedroom 5 minutes late, knowing that they were 5 minutes later than they should be to get into the traffic, to go to the meeting or to get to work or whatever it happened to be? We've all been there, haven't we? And you get downstairs, but you're thinking on the way down the stairs about who you're meeting, or the boss standing inside the door of work, tapping his watch. We get to the bottom of the stairs and there's no key in it. And then we start running around looking for the key, but panic is taking over because we're worried about something else. And we get into what's called a blind panic. And the reason it's called a blind panic is we can walk past stuff without even seeing it. Up and down the hall 3 or 4 times past the keys before we realise they're there. We've all been there, haven't we? Everybody can remember a situation like that. And you couldn't find the keys because of the blind panic. And it didn't really matter because nobody was going to die. Now, imagine a scenario in 3 months' time. It's 4 o'clock in the morning and you're running down the stairs with a bunch of kids coming behind you. And you get to the bottom of the stairs and the living room is ablaze. And the kitchen behind you is ablaze. and you've 30 seconds to get through that door, or you're all toast, and you look at the lock and there's no key in it. Can you imagine how your blind panic would be then? Close your eyes for 2 seconds and imagine how that would feel. What would it mean to know that that little switch would make sure that never happened? Who'd buy one? Everybody would. And the next question is, what would you pay me for it? And if I asked you for 150 quid for it, you'd give it to me, wouldn't you? And if I asked all of you who'd take one for the back door just to be safe, you'd all take one as well. The interesting thing is they're only 25 quid. Do you see now about how to create value? Put the story into the customer's head. Think about what matters to the customer. Now, did this happen by accident? And just to show you how this worked, when I asked you to remember the time that you were late, and everybody could remember it, all of a sudden, at one point, you pictured yourselves standing at the bottom of the stairs in that previous experience. And I did that on purpose, because a picture paints 1,000 words, and nobody is going to listen to me tell them 1,000 words about a door lock. When I asked you to transport yourself into the future, I specifically put the word running into it, running down the stairs. I put motion into your next picture, because a picture with motion in it is no longer a picture. What is it? It's a video. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000 pictures. And that's 1,000,000 words. And nobody's going to listen to me tell them that about a door lock, are they? So you see how that makes sense? Make it emotional. Sell it to the emotional brain. And really think about what matters to the customer. Now, Dave asked me to give one more example, and I'll do this as quickly as I can. This is a true story from about 15 years ago, when I worked in manufacturing. And I had to deal one day with a procurement manager. Hands up who likes dealing with procurement managers? We don't like it at all, do we? Because they're trained. And they're there to hammer you on price, aren't they? I walked into this meeting one day at about 10 to 11, walked into the office to meet this very, very, very angry man. I thought, I have some chance here. But I got him a little bit out of his comfort zone, and I asked him, why was he so angry? What had happened today? When he told me that the entire factory was shut down waiting for parts that were 2 hours late. And he had 150 people sitting on an assembly line with nothing to do. And because they were paying them by the hour with nothing to do, and because they were going to have to pay them time and a half that evening to stay on and finish the job, to get the order out, in total it was costing the company 10,000 euros an hour to sit around. Now most of us would think, there's where we sell to. What would it mean if I could save you 10,000 euros an hour? But what was interesting was, it's not his money. It's the boss's money. But he's the person we're dealing with. He's not emotionally invested in that money. So I said, what kind of stress levels has that caused? And he said, oh, don't talk to me about it. It was the same yesterday. What had happened? He said, 5 o'clock yesterday, the boss came down and started shouting at me in front of all the staff, made it all my fault. I said, you must have gone home like some kind of lunatic. He said, I did. And I had a fight with the wife during dinner. I said, oh, that must have been terrible. It was. And what happened? He said, she made me sleep on the sofa. And I said, Liam, what would it mean to you to know that if you use my company instead from here on in, you'll never sleep on the sofa because of me? Do you think he bought it? Do you think I had to do a product demonstration? Do you think he whinged about the price? Because I went all the way down to find out what really mattered to him. So if I give you anything to take away from today, it's really think about what matters to your customer. Ask them. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Because when you get that, let me tell you, moment, it will change everything. Just as a last little thing, because my whole idea about sales is about thinking slightly outside the box. A picture there of children doing their exams. I have 7 teenagers at home. Yeah, it's true, 7. Between the ages of 13 and 19. And let me tell you something. Every one of them knows that they eat everything I earn. And they also know that when I'm 80, because of their hunger, I will have no money left. And every one of them knows that if they can't afford to pay for somebody to wipe my ass when I'm 80, they're going to have to wipe it themselves. Do you think I need to chase them to do their study? Do you think I need to check their homework every night? I don't, because I thought outside the box. So, that's an odd example for today. Now, just a quick last thing here. If you want to increase your income, if you want to empower your team, create powerful messages that tug at the heartstrings, and design repeatable processes, you can get me at SALEStalk.ie. Now, as a last thing here, I have to go away. As Dave said, I have to run out the door in a couple of minutes. But Dave is going to do a draw. Everybody will hand in their business card. Dave has a pot there for it. And one lucky viewer or listener or attendee today is going to get a free mentoring day for their company or individual or whatever they want. It's their prize, okay? So make sure to put your cards in, give them to Dave after I'm done. Thank you very much.